Hello and welcome! I am Annemie, and this is another episode of Euro Truck Soliloquy, the show where every week I talk about some things that interest me in the news, whether gaming or otherwise, and just generally chat for a little bit. So, I'm recording this video a day before usual, as I don't think I'm going to get a chance to be able to record anything tomorrow. I'm going in the wrong direction. This is a good start. So, and I record these a day in advance anyway. So if there's any important news that happens either this evening, Sunday evening, or on Monday, probably not going to be able to talk about it as my crystal ball is still in the shops. Oh, it's been too long since I've done this. But yeah, I'm also feeling maybe a little bit hungover. Still had a bit of a weekend get-together where had some mulled wine and some Earl Grey martinis, which I'd never had before my partner made them to me. Okay, let's take some low-bed semi-trailers from Rotterdam to Glasgow. Never been to Glasgow either, I think. Had some Earl Grey martinis, made our own pizzas, because apparently it's like being in university again, despite the fact that I'm 25. Okay, let's just maneuver around. So yeah, good time was had by all, but means that I'm feeling a little bit, not rough, but less peppy than usual, shall we say. Okay, there's the thing we want to attach to. Oh, I'm playing this so badly today already. Let's have a look outside our cab. Nope. So yeah, there's been a decent amount that I've been... That's the wrong direction. Been reading about recently. Some of it new, some of it not. And I think I'm going to start on some stuff that's been coming out of China over the last few years. Now, for quite some time, a lot of people have been seeking to use games in order to make people more engaged in things like education. Right, the gamification of education, probably a pretty good thing. Make students more engaged, more likely to listen. Make them learn more, I guess, in the end of it. Oh. Nearly forgot which side of the road I was working on. Good thing that car came about. As I've said before, I am not a driver in real life, so... I mean, driving on the right is, I guess, what I'm most used to, as most games seem to go at it from the American route. But yeah, a lot of people spend time and energy trying to figure out how to get more people engaged, and usually that comes with making things a bit more gamey, gamifying them. Come on, let me through. And when it's done for the sake of things like education, that's all well and good. We want people to be more engaged. If it's done in, say, healthcare, that's also probably a good thing. However, China has set up a social network partnered with the country's Amazon-like retailer Alibaba. Oh, hello car. And it's called Sesame Credit. And the basic idea behind it is that it will assign you a score. The higher your score, the more benefits you can get. So you might be able to travel to Hong Kong without needing papers to go there, or be able to get a European Schengen visa, or you might be able to take out loans of various different sizes a lot more easily. Currently there are no penalties for bad scores, which is good because it's an optional service. But you can get lots of these cool things. Now, how does it calculate your score? So firstly, it does the typical thing which so many games do, in that if you give it your email address, that'll give you boost your score, phone number, boost your score, essentially give it more details, and it will tell you that you are better for it, so it will reward you. So that is relatively benign. You can say, no, I'm not going to give you my email addresses. Now, it also calculates your score based on your purchases. So, if, like me, you play a decent amount of video games and order them from Amazon, obviously we have digital distribution platforms, which would also probably be linked in with that, but if you order lots of games, it would probably see you as not being especially productive, and it would give you a lower score than if you were, for instance, buying lots of childcare products, or maybe if you were buying lots of sort of construction materials, it would rate you higher. So this is already starting to get somewhat insidious, in that it's very much social conditioning and saying, hey, we as the government who run this score, don't forget, it's like sort of a credit score. We don't like that you're playing all these video games and sitting on your backside. We want you to be looking after children. We want you to be creating things for other people. We want you to be a good citizen. But okay, this is still all somewhat harmless. It's a bit more insidious here, but don't worry, it'll get worse. So the worst piece of this puzzle is that it's a social network. So you can link with your friends on it, and you'll be able to see their scores. And you'll be able to see Jeff blogs from down the road. Ooh, his citizenship score's pretty bad. Maybe I don't want to associate with him as much, and this is reinforced. Let's see if I can sneak through here. There we go. This is reinforced by the fact that your score is directly affected by the score of your friends. Now, the results of this are fairly obvious. It's trying to engage in a system of social conditioning by ostracizing you from your social group, because they want to be able to take out that loan. They want to travel to Germany. They want to have all of these wonderful perks of being a citizen, so they're not going to talk to you. Oh, I did have... Oh, there it is. Yeah, unfortunately, I've re-hotkeyed this on my laptop version, but I still have to go to the keyboard in this version because I've not actually bothered to change it yet, to change my GPS scale. So that's a bit of a pain. Let's see if I can just wheedle my way through. Come on, come on, there we go. But yes, it's quite clearly an attempt to socially engineer the behaviour of your population through your friends. Saying, oh, look at this person, don't buy another video game, we want you to help me get to Europe. There. Yes. And that is not a good thing. And not even that is the worst thing. So up to now, this is optional. Change side of the road, I actually remembered this time. Come 2020, this will be mandatory. Every single person in China will have to sign up to this and be ranked. You are the 3rd best citizen in your area, you are the 10 millionth best citizen in the country, or maybe you're like the billionth best citizen in the country. So you'll want to climb that ladder. And it's highly suspected that there will start becoming penalties for low scores. Things like slower internet connection is one that I particularly remember, but there are a number of other things which might be taken away from you, like the ability to travel altogether, the ability to take out any sort of loan, the ability to get certain types of job. And some of the jobs that were listed as being requiring higher scores are things like civil servant, which makes some form of sense. You'd probably want your civil servants to represent the standards of your government. I've not got a huge problem with that. I mean, I've still got a problem with it, but it's not as big. You've got lawyers, where it starts getting a bit iffier, but yeah, maybe you'd want them to be upstanding individuals. And journalists. You want the people who are responsible for informing the general public about the state of governance to be viewed by the government as being decent people. I can't see that flying in many other places. I can see certain North American politicians wanting a system like that. I'm fairly sure that certain North American politicians have endorsed a system like that. But seeing this actually being put into place in a terrifyingly, and this phrase gets repeated far too frequently, but there is no other word for it, Orwellian form of social conditioning, is a really terrifying way to see games and social networks being used. The one good thing that comes out of it, of course, is that seeing it being tried to be put into practice in such an extreme case might help raise our guard to it happening in less obvious cases. We might see that we're being ranked in some system, possibly our output at work, like Employee of the Month would be quite an obvious system for this. And so we can be a bit more on our guard as to what's happening, because one of the most terrifying things about this was the story I was reading, well, one of the stories I was reading to research this. They went to China, they talked to people about it, and clearly they weren't going to say to the camera anything negative about it. But they didn't seem to even know that there could be negatives, because if you're not looking for it, it just seems like a fun little game. See who's the best. How nice would that be? And if I do things better than you, then maybe I can go on holiday. Oh, how fun. But that is the state of a world that we're heading more and more towards, I suspect. I mean, in a way, I'm glad that politicians in the West typically have such a weak grasp on how a lot of digital technologies really work, where they think that trying to ban various types of, for instance, porn is going to be effective. And it's adorable, really. And you sometimes wish that they would have a better grasp of it, but if they did, well, have a look at China. So yeah, that's interesting. Now this is feeling very Scottish to me right now, with the mist and the darkness. Don't know if we're actually in Scotland yet. Let's have a look. Yes, we're probably in Scotland. Okay. So next thing I've got on my list, it's really not particularly current either. I mean, I saw it, the trigger for this came as part of a current story about one of the new Telltale Batman games. But I think that... So the Telltale series has always been a bit weird for me. I kind of liked The Walking Dead. I think I played through the first few of those. They were quite fun. And I really got how they were lauded as being this interactive storytelling system that really gets you invested in the world and the choices you're making because of the various bits popping up on screen, the feeling that every choice matters and you not knowing which choices will matter, for instance. But then I played the Game of Thrones Telltale game. And the spell was broken. And it was broken in a very uniquely gamey way. And it's almost paradoxical, really. I feel like the Telltale games occupy this sort of uncanny valley of storytelling, where they give you the illusion that you can do what you want. There might be other forces pushing down on you, but you can change events with your choices. Until you can't. So the bit I'm particularly thinking of, and spoilers ahead for the first chapter of the Game of Thrones Telltale game, is that I spent the whole first... You've spent your whole first chapter sort of dealing with the threat of Ramsay Bolton coming up to you in your castle. I've forgotten what the name of it is, seeing as it was a non-canon Game of Thrones house, I believe, or maybe it was just a very minor one. But nobody you've seen in the TV shows, right? And you spend a lot of it dealing with Ramsay Bolton, and at the end of the chapter, you get killed by Ramsay. And I was like, yeah, that's a fairly Game of Thrones thing to happen. I wonder how I could have done it differently. And unless I've missed something drastic, you can't. Now this makes sense from a storytelling perspective. You want to knit your threads together in order to be able to tell some sort of reasonably contained story. But when one of your major selling points is choice, you feel like that's being wrenched away from you. And in fact I do significantly prefer stories where you're railroaded via a cutscene, or you know that your choices don't really matter, you don't have this... Yeah, that's it. So, whenever you... Well, not whenever, but quite frequently when you make decisions in Telltale games, you'll get up something like, blah-de-blah-de-blah, will remember this. The person you're talking to will remember this. And that's a really good little device for making people think that their choices matter. But when they know that some of your choices don't matter, it starts to sound either sarcastic or patronizing. Not quite made up my mind which. But it sounds disingenuous, like it's just saying this. Like the dialogue has gone by, it's put up a thing saying that Cersei will remember this, and the game doesn't. The game just forgets about it. And if you do that, you become... When the game doesn't meet your expectations in this sort of circumstance, it's disappointing. And for me, it was actually fatal to my experience here. But it disappoints you. Whereas when lots of other games, like, for instance, Dragon Age or The Witcher and so on, when those consequences come up, because you're not expecting every little detail to matter, when those consequences come up, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Now, I know that a lot of people still enjoy the Telltale series. And that's good. I want people to enjoy as many things as possible. But I find it just sort of interesting. I don't even know what, or if I have a driving point here. No, pun intended. But I think that we might be starting to head into a more general area of uncanny valley in storytelling. And I'd be interested to see how we get through that, because I think we're starting to get through it in graphics. We're getting a good fidelity. A lot of things have good animation. I was actually blown away by the animation in Assassin's Creed Unity. I know that's not a popular thing to say, but a few years ago when that was released, I didn't get any of the massive visual bugs, and it looked gorgeous to me. The lip syncing was great, and I didn't feel awkward looking at these characters. I could actually get into some form of drama. And story has always lagged behind visuals in games for many reasons. I think chief among which is that it's not considered as highly by the people with the money, and that they don't think that people come to video games for a good story. They come to it for graphics, so they put the money into graphics. And story is frequently an afterthought. The set pieces might already be built, and the story is worked around them. Which is clearly not the best way to deliver great storytelling. Unless you're Tolstoy, of course. Where he did take set pieces from history and build a deeply compelling story around that. So, I guess what I'm saying is that we need Tolstoy to write video game stories. Yeah. Another interesting thing which I saw this week, and was actually talked about quite a lot at the Shindig box social last night, was Niantic. And the announcement that they are making a Harry Potter alternate reality game. And again, I think that's kinda interesting. For the following reason. Pokemon Go is powered by nostalgia. Ooh, not windscreen wipers. I always get my left and right D-pads mixed up on this game. But Pokemon Go is powered by nostalgia, and as a game, it's not very good. It's a scavenger hunt. Ooh, well, I'm through the lights now. Might as well keep going. It's a scavenger hunt with incredibly rudimentary battle systems. And it's a game whose enjoyment, or whose continuing enjoyment, is just that of the stamp collector. Which is where a lot of the fun comes in the actual Pokemon games for a lot of people as well. I know not everybody, a lot of people get into the competitive thing. That was never me. I enjoyed the collecting, I enjoyed the leveling. I quite enjoy level grinding every now and then. Let's drop this off. I'm in a hurry! Okay. Do we get a level? Yay! Let's get some more long distance stuff. Can I get a big loan? Yes, I can. I guess I will start. Ooh, got an email. I'm guessing that's about the. Can help you grow. Yes. So let's switch over to the mouse. Let's actually build our garage. upgrade that. Yes. So I remember back when Niantic's, I think it was their first alternate reality game, was out, and some of my housemates played it. Ingress would go around. It was essentially the gym battling system from Pokemon Go, and then they built on that with Pokemon in quite an obvious and a rather ingenious way. It's a good idea. Let's head out. I want to go to a shop. Truck dealer. Volvo. I can't buy online yet, can I? Yes, I do. How much money do I have? Let's purchase that one. No, I do not. And I feel like I should say I don't have a mobile phone, so I don't have first-hand knowledge of how... Actually, let's just save the money for now. Yeah, let's leave the truck dealer. I don't have first-hand knowledge of how these play, but my partner's really into it. And it seems like Niantic have been somewhat floundering with what to do with Pokemon Go. They've got 2 generations. At least actually recruitment agency. That's what I want. Oh, I haven't discovered a recruitment agency? Well, I guess let's discover one. There must be one in Glasgow. Let's just drive around till we find one. World map. Let's head over in that direction. So they've released... Huh. Oh. Can I actually get out of here is the question. Scrapey, scrapey, scrape, scrape. And the only thing they've really got going to try and keep interest is... I'm actually going that way. Okay. Is the releasing of new generations. They don't seem to have done much interesting mechanically, and it essentially just becomes something akin to data entry, where your Pokemon are your data. Like, have I got this one? No? Well, let's get this one then. And you'd think that if they still had ideas for how to keep this sort of alternate reality thing interesting, they would be putting it in Pokemon Go, seeing as Pokemon seems a much more natural fit for your alternate reality than Harry Potter. I might be wrong, and I don't doubt that the alternate reality Harry Potter will be popular because it's something new. And I mean, you saw this with Pokemon Go as well, with lots of people playing it at first until the novelty wore off. Some of the people became pretty dedicated and stuck with it and are still playing it, but a large amount of the player base died off, and that's kind of what you expect. But I'm interested to see... Ooh, that was a truck dealer. No, I want a recruitment agency. Come on, come on, come on. Yay! Recruitment agency. I would like to hire a driver from you, please. I can just hire one. That's a bit irritating. Well, let's hire her. Oh. And I can hire another one. Oh, wait, no. Down there. That's right. Good. So, what job should I do next? I mean, I do hope that they find ways to push this alternate reality thing a bit further, because it's an interesting idea, but currently feels more like a gimmick than anything else. I mean, if nothing else, how many people actually use the alternate reality feature of it? Now, given how much battery and processing power it chews through on an already battery-hungry game. It seems to me that... Come on, let me through. There we go. It seems to me like the alternate reality thing is being used in kind of the right way as something to support the game experience. But they have massively watered down the existing Pokemon game experience so that even the basic levels of strategy that were in the video game are no longer present in the alternate reality game. But I think it seems promising as long as things are still being done with it and it's not just, hey, we want to take another popular franchise and make an alternate reality game out of it because we need more money for our microtransactions. I mean, Niantic aren't exactly my favourite company for pro-consumer practices. The whole shutting down of third-party systems for helping your game, like the maps which would take data from Pokemon Go and give you real-time locations of the Pokemon before the Pokemon radar was fixed. I mean, I thought we'd have learned this lesson quite some time ago, that the way you foster... Well, firstly, that having a good community for your game is crucial. And the way you foster having a good community is letting the community kinda do what they want with the thing that you've given them. I'm not saying give them full-on mods in a multiplayer game to break the experience. Like, I don't know, you don't let them make mods to make leveling easier, for instance, or give you more candy, and so on. But just making raw data available so that people can do what they want with it without putting an excessive load on Niantic's service, that seems good. People are going to do it anyway. People are going to try to reverse engineer your game, and they're going to try and analyze it because that's what people who enjoy a thing do. And this is kind of like Niantic saying to them, no, you're enjoying our product wrong. But there we go. So, the next thing I've got on my list, it was an interesting article from Kotaku. I know that a lot of people rag on Kotaku quite often for good reason. But this one was interesting, and it was talking about Cuphead. That recent darling of the hardcore scene. I've not played it myself yet. I intend to at some point. I like games with a bit of challenge to them. But this wasn't a game that was just sort of your puff piece talking about how great or how difficult or talking about the community going on there. It was saying, okay, so Cuphead, it's got an interesting animation style. It very much harkens back to your old style cartoons. And those were, as a lot of people are aware, not the least racist things in existence, shall we say. Song of the South being the most obvious example of this. But... oh, sorry about that. Just got a bit of a frog in my throat. Song of the South being the most obvious example, but the animation style in general was used to whitewash culture. And now, as you might be able to tell, I am not an expert on animation, I'm not an expert on that era, but I think it's an interesting angle to approach this, and that is the animation style that Cuphead is using racist? Now, this isn't to say that Cuphead is racist. Not to say the developers are racist. It's not to say that anybody who's playing it and enjoying it is racist. You can do things that are racially charged, shall we say, without meaning to, and that's absolutely fine. And the idea is... oh, sorry, I'm going to pause this and I need to clear my throat a little bit. Sorry, speaking for a long time does weird things to the throat, and it's getting towards sort of cold and flu season. So yeah. No, it's very much along the lines as why blackface is racist. So I've had some quite interesting conversations with people talking about the inherent racism behind blackface. And I'm one of those people who says that, firstly, blackface isn't inherently racist, and I think most people agree with that. It's not that painting your skin a particular colour is racist in and of itself. If there were only one skin colour in the world, that would be fine. It's fine to paint your skin green and be Elphaba. It's fine to paint your skin grey and be an alien. So blackface isn't inherently racist. And for instance, I would take a very different view of a 5-year-old child who grabbed some of his black friend's clothes, threw some dirt on his face and said, "Hey, we're brothers now, we're twins." I would think that's sweet and adorable. If an adult did that, that would be quite disgusting in most cases. Or anything sort of similar to that. Because it's a social issue. And the only reason that blackface is bad is because of the social connotations to do with the lived experiences of people of colour. If there weren't supreme inequality, both historically and currently, it'd be fine. But because there is such inequality and such a deep systemic bias against people who have a different skin tone to me, for instance, because I am a white individual, then it takes on a different meaning. So I read about this Cuphead thing earlier today in preparation for this, and it's one of the things that I want to learn a bit more about. I'm aware of the attitudes at the time these cartoons were being made, and I can fully see why this animation style in particular could be charged. And I can also see the developers saying, hey, it's just a style we like, we went with it because we like it. But that's not really a defense. I mean, it defends them from attitudes of being personally racist, even if they end up doing something which is racially challenged. It's just like saying, if you see like a 30-year-old give themselves a different skin color, give themselves a black makeover, then they might be able to say, oh, I wasn't aware of minstrels. But the act itself would still be something objectionable, even if the intent behind it wasn't bad. Right? I think the bigger thing to do here is say, okay, we weren't aware of the issues going on here. I don't know who developed it, I'm sorry, I don't have, but we the developers of Cuphead weren't aware that this animation style had issues with it. Now, the game has already been made, we can't alter it, but we will try to be more aware about it for the future, and we might donate a small amount of our profits to some particular charity to try and erase any negative impact this game might have had. Something like that. I can easily be swayed on pretty much any of this. But not knowing isn't an argument for it not being racist. Now again, because some of you I missed it at the start, I am not saying that the developers or the players or anyone who enjoys that sort of art style is racist. But I think it's something we all have to be aware of, because in the Western Hemisphere, the predominant culture has been white culture. So we might not necessarily be aware of things that other people find hurtful. Right? If there were a style of animation that was entirely associated with Nazi Germany's and anti-Jewish propaganda, we would not be using that. That would not be a thing which we would want our games to harken back to. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. Whichever side of it you fall down on. Now, something that was less broadly social, but completely baffling that I saw recently was, so there is this MMO called Tera. It's a typical MMO, and recently it had to disable its chat system. Now, one might quite reasonably ask, why would a game have to disable its chat system? Why would an MMO, where you're playing with lots of other people and you want to talk with lots of other people, why would that game have to disable its chat system? Had some 13-year-old hacker got hold of some of the software and decided to change every utterance of the word ant to a racial epithet? No. Were there just too many trolls lurking around? No. What had been discovered was that the chat could be used to force people to download a virus onto their computers. Now, the developers have insisted that this hasn't happened yet. So this is a precautionary measure, and that no one has actually been virused. I don't know the veracity of this, but that's not really the point. The point is, why was a chat system able to let viruses be downloaded? It's, I think, a question that's going to come up more in the future and in a slightly broader term. So with more and more games being developed by independent developers, with people who can just code a game sitting in their bedrooms and it can download on your computer, there will be more and more risk of these games downloading malicious entities onto your computer. You don't necessarily have it going through reputable publishers. You don't have much in the way of sort of certification that this is safe beyond whatever you get from Steam. Oh, I should be getting off here. Woof. But there are also lots of other places you can download games on the internet now. And that's a good thing. But what I'm wondering is whether we're going to start seeing operating systems start to partition their hard drives into a game section and a work section, so that the two sides absolutely cannot talk to each other. I think that could be interesting. I think that might actually be quite useful. Because this particular instance, it seems to have been just carelessness. But imagine what less scrupulous people could do. And that's not a nice thought, should we say. Okay, so getting towards the hour mark. I don't somehow... Ooh. Come on. Let's see if I can... I would not be a good driver in real life. Okay. What have I got written down here? So professional. So yeah, I don't think we're going to finish this journey today, but I've got one more thing I'd quite like to talk about. And that was another story which I found, which says that it's going to become more difficult for indie developers to release physical copies of games in America now. So, ooh, where am I going? That way. So the way it has previously worked is that digital games can release a special edition physically, and they don't have to get an ESRB check. The ratings system, for those who don't know, which I believe is voluntary. I'm not too hot on this, but this loophole is being closed, which means that indie devs who've realized their game is popular and want to put out a physical copy are going to have to pay something in the region of $3,000 in order to do this. Now, what baffles me somewhat is, in this world where digital distribution has started to become more popular than physical distribution, why are we not having some form of ESRB check on every game? I think that $3,000 is a lot to expect from small indie developers wanting to just publish something on, say, Steam. That is true. But there is already a fee to pay Steam to publish your games on its service. And I wonder if part of that fee could go for some form of ESRB check. There was a system which I talked about on one of the Extra Credits podcasts. I'm on the wrong side of the road, aren't I? which was essentially a form of self-checking system. So if a developer wanted to get an ESRB rating, they would have to rate it themselves. And if people thought that rating was off, if they thought it was wrong, then after a certain amount of complaints made against the game for having the wrong rating, the developers would either have to pay for a full check to happen to the game, or the game would just be taken off Steam, or some other form of heavy punishment to significantly disincentivize people putting up games with the wrong rating. And I don't think that would be too much to ask. I think we need to have some system that tells people what's in a game. I mean, if you're particularly up on things, you might watch Let's Plays of games, you might read reviews, you might watch reviews, you might watch first impressions, you might talk to people about these games. But if you're somebody who doesn't play games and you're looking at getting something for a young relative, you want to make sure that it doesn't have any content that you find disagreeable, that you think that the child wouldn't be happy with. And currently there's not much of a system for that. You've got Steam tags, but that's about it. What parents would have to do at this stage is buy it, play it for themselves, which they might not necessarily have the time for, and then potentially get a refund if it turns out not to be suitable. But I think that more information is always better information, so why don't we get a better rating system? Why don't we make sure that every single game, no matter where it's published, tells people what it contains? And I don't know the answer to that. But it's something that we should keep looking at, because I don't think that loophole should exist. Sure, it's going to make it harder for indies to publish physical copies of games, and that's a shame. But on the other hand, you shouldn't be able to not inform your clients just because you don't have a big publisher, just because you've already published it digitally. That seems bizarre to me. But, oh well. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to pull into a rest stop and stop the game there. I don't think I'm going to get to an actual... to the actual end of this journey. That's the word I'm looking for. Well, words. Sentence. Part of a sentence. Because there's still a decent amount of time left on the clock, and it's getting pretty close to the hour mark. But anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed listening to me. If you have, please do like and subscribe. If you found anything I've said to be utterly incomprehensible and idiotic, wow, that was incomprehensible. If you found anything I've said to be utterly incomprehensible or idiotic or illogical, please leave a comment. If you want me to cover anything else, leave a comment as well, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye.